And now, ladies and gentlemen, John Carlson. I'm going to try to do this without my glasses, so we'll see if that works. I got a really big print. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming and giving voice to your concerns over the direction that our government is going. And I especially want to thank Terry Stone and his lovely wife Gail, who drove all the way down from International Falls to be with us today and laid the foundation for this speech. Thanks, Terry. Our federal Constitution is modeled after the charters of the original colonies. I think too often these days we elect people that have no concept of history. They have no concept of how this country was built. And I think maybe there ought to be a litmus test before we elect anyone again. Know something about the Constitution! Like the charters of the original colonies, many of those charters, like those of Delaware, Connecticut, maintained remarkable freedoms for their people. So then in 1976, the Articles of Confederation were introduced, and they reflected the distrust that our founding fathers had in a federal, centralized government. The document gave so little power to the federal government that the states were actually dangerously ungovernable. Under the Articles of Confederation, the federal government was not trusted to conduct foreign policy on behalf of the states. Under the Articles of Confederation, the federal government was not trusted to set tariffs to protect American manufacturers from foreign imports. The federal government was not trusted to settle land disputes on America's rapidly expanding western border. And the federal government surely wasn't trusted to directly tax the people of the various states. I think those early Americans were onto something. What do you think? In spite of serious reservations about giving central government any power over the lives of citizens, a few very carefully enumerated powers were doled out by the people to form a new constitution in 1787. Unfortunately, under this new U.S. Constitution, the government started to swell up, and it's been swelling ever since. Do we like where this trend is heading? No! The federal government owns land in all 50 states. It owns 6% of Minnesota, and an unbelievable 85% of Nevada. In fact, the federal government owns about half of all the lands west of Kansas. In addition to real estate, the power of the federal government has also swollen, and it's about to become morbidly obese because of cap and trade taxation. Do we like cap and trade? No! Cap and trade is the biggest tax scheme in the history of the world. Worse yet, cap and trade is based on global warming computer modeling that is totally disagreeable with the actual observations during the past decade. Obama's pledge to collect this tax and give most of it back in energy credits sounds suspiciously like a scam for the redistribution of wealth. Yeah. Do we like our paychecks redistributed? No! The balance between the power of the states and the power of the federal government has been going on and changing for 233 years. In times of war, in times of crisis, the federal government tends to grab power, even when that crisis is largely hyped and based upon science that seems to be falling apart at the seams. There are government opportunists. On March 6th, Hillary Clinton told an audience, quote, "Never waste a good crisis. Don't waste it when it can have a very positive impact on climate change," unquote. Climate change? squadron of rocket scientists going door to door in the city giving energy tips, including those new light bulbs with mercury in them. I'm surprised Duluth didn't subcontract its light bulb advisory program to Acorn. In 1974, using a fuel shortage crisis as the excuse, the federal government seized control of state speed limits, in spite of the fact that the new 55-mile-an-hour speed limit actually raised the speed limit in 7 states. Only in 1995, after 21 years of federal control, did states take back their highways through an almost universal failure to enforce the federal measures. And now the federal government is using a financial crisis to interfere in the private markets so extremely that we, the people, are now in the position of owning the banks and car companies. Here's an idea. Instead of a stimulus check, how about mailing everybody a General Motors brochure and offer a 10% commission on any vehicle you sell? Jobs, jobs, jobs! A country full of car salesmen! The federal government invades our lives, controls our water, controls our air, and now it wants to control our carbon dioxide. And worse, it wants to heap enormous taxes on it. Their justification lies almost exclusively with the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. For any of you Constitution buffs, that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. Check it out. It gives the federal government the right to regulate commerce among the states. Since there's nearly nothing these days that doesn't affect interstate commerce of some type or another, the power of the federal government is nearly unlimited. Unless we start changing the type of people we send to Washington. Are you with me? My final thought is on green jobs. Our federal government needs to stop trying to get us to use intermittent, expensive, and inconvenient energy sources while ignoring nuclear power plants. Even our state legislators blocked all efforts to remove the Minnesota ban on new nuclear plants, the only ban of its kind in America. Instead of bragging about all the green labor money that goes into alternative fuels, the government should be working at reducing the price of alternative energy. Once alternative energy is inexpensive, convenient, and doesn't disrupt the world food supply, we'll all buy it cheerfully. Instead, this administration has grabbed the entire energy market with unprecedented federal power, and it's about to tax us into buying expensive energy products that nobody wants. This relentless march toward unlimited federal power needs to stop. It's going to stop. We start now, we start here. I want my country back. Are you with me?